We know that negative thinking can be a problem, but what about positive thinking? Can't that also distort our point of view? And what does it mean to go beyond positive and negative into a more transcendent wholeness or oneness? That's the Torah of Awakening that we'll be looking at in Parshat Eikev. Before we begin, if you enjoy videos like this, there's an easy way you can help support. Just give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you have another few seconds, leave a comment and hit the bell to get notified when we go live on YouTube. And now on with the teaching. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu. We seem to be wired to focus on the negative, right? It's not something that we default to recognize the blessings that are present unless they're really in our face, unless we're surprised. Oh, wow, this is amazing. This is great. But just like you get up in the morning and what do? You focus on the blessings automatically? Maybe you do. I don't know. I don't feel that necessarily automatically, but in a way I do because I train myself to. The moment you wake up in the morning, the traditional practice is to say the prayer, which is giving thanks, Modeh or Modani. And so a big part of Judaism and any spiritual practice is the deliberate, conscious, intentional training of ourselves to recognize blessing as opposed to being taken over by the default, which is to recognize curse or to be aware of things that we judge as not good, which is there to help us, right? It's there for our safety. We should be aware of things that are dangerous. So it makes sense that we would default to the negative. But what I want to talk about today is that in some interesting ways, we also irrationally default to the positive in a way that's not helpful. For example, what comes to mind when you hear the word nature? I think for most people, when you hear the word nature, you think of good things. When I hear the word nature, like the connotation is like a beautiful sunset, right? Or like spacious outdoors, or feeling of peace, feeling of getting away from the grind of daily life and into something more spiritual, more spacious, nature, right? But the word nature actually means the natural world, which does have all those things, but it also has things that we would describe as disgusting, as dangerous. A deadly hurricane is nature, right? But when we hear the word nature, we don't immediately think of that. Sometimes it happens that I go away or the family goes away and we forget to take out the garbage before we leave. And then we come back a few weeks later and there's a stench in the house. That's nature though, right? The microorganisms doing their work in the garbage, creating various chemicals and gases that create that smell. But the point is that when we experience those things that we don't like, the stench or the danger or whatever, it's still possible to bring to mind the amazing coordination of it and intelligence of nature, the intelligence of the microorganisms and the role that they play in the biosphere in order to sustain life, and that it's all part of one cycle. We can do that. We can just think of those things, and it doesn't change the stench of the garbage. It still smells terrible, but we're not caught up in the drama of that. We can appreciate, we can transcend it. And so the point is that whatever our default judgment is, we have the ability to transcend that and see something that's deeper. And this is, of course, a wonderful analog to what spiritual practice is all about. There's a story of a king who wanted to test his subjects. And so he had all of his treasures from the palace brought out into a big field. All the different art and statues and precious things, jewels, gold, all brought out into a big field. And he said the entire kingdom can come and they can look through everything and everybody can pick one thing and take it for themselves. wanted to test them. So people come and they're anxiously, oh my God, should I take this or should I take that? Maybe I don't want to miss this. They're walking around anxiously, trying to figure out what they're going to get. And at some point, an old woman wanders into the field with her cane. And she goes right up to the king, who's seated on a throne in the middle of the field overlooking the whole thing. And she taps on his throne. She says, "Excuse me, is it true that I can take anything in the field for myself?" He says, "Yes, you just have to look and choose anything you want." And she says, "Okay then, I choose you." And so he says, "You chose very well. You get me and you get everything else in the field too, because it all belongs to me." So the story is cute, but it has a very profound meaning, I think, because the hint of the story is that there's something so obvious that we tend to miss. We're distracted by all the pretty things in the field. We get anxious. Oh, should I do this? Should I do that? What if I miss out? I'm going to have FOMO. And yet there's something we can choose that kind of gets beyond all of that stuff, all of that drama. The king in the field. The king in the field. So the king is said to be in the field at this time. We're past Tisha B'Av. We came to Tu B'Av. We're headed toward Elul. The next big holiday is Rosh Hashanah. The metaphor for God, the dominant metaphor for God in Rosh Hashanah is the image of the king. And this is the hint, is that, and it's a paradox in a sense, because the king in the field that you can choose if you're not distracted is ever available. It's always there because it's the root reality of all things, of all experiences, of all moments, meaning this moment. And yet for us, we come to certain moments where this becomes available to us, and other times maybe we're just distracted or we can't seem to get to it. But the point of these teachings is to show us a path, show us the way. And also that it's very simple. It's not some complicated thing. Kabbalah tends to make things very complicated. That's my critique of Kabbalah. I think it's cute. It keeps the mind entertained. But the essence, the truth, is actually something very simple. There's a hint in the opening verse of the Parsha. V'haya eikev tishma'un et hamishpatim ha'ele. And it will be if you listen to these mishpatim, which I've translated here as ethical principles. There are different kinds of mitzvot. Mitzvot are called different things in different contexts. And when it says mishpatim, it's generally talking about ethical rules, doing the right thing, like not stealing, not cheating, things like that. So at first glance, this verse, with its use of the word mishpatim, seems to be saying the opposite of what we've been talking about. Been talking about the divine that infuses all things beyond good and bad, right? But mishpatim are ethical laws grounded in the perspective that there is good and bad, there is right and wrong, which is in contrast to seeing the divine in all things, transcending good and bad, going beyond right and wrong. And yet, on a deeper level, there's a hint in this verse of the non-dual, of the realization of the divine that permeates everything, beyond good and bad. V'haya eikev tishma'un. It will be if you listen. The word eikev literally means heel. In this context, it is understood to mean the word if, in the sense of one thing following on the heels of another thing, if, and so on and so forth. The word v'haya means it will be, but it is also the same letters as the divine name in a different order, Yod-He and Vav-He. The idea here is that in order for us to realize the underlying divinity of everything, then even our heels, the bottom and most insensitive parts of the body, must become sensitive to the divinity that permeates all things. There is a hint in the word eikev itself. Ayin, kuf, bet. Ayin means eye and indicates seeing, meaning perception, meaning awareness. Kuf represents Kedusha, meaning sacred or holy. And Bet is like Bayit, meaning house, indicating that form is God's house. Everything is a form. And so every form is really a house of God in a sense. Thus, within the word Eikev itself is encoded the practice of seeing through to the sacred dimension which is housed in all things. How do we do that? V'haya Eikev tishma'un, which we might retranslate as the divine is realized by the heel that listens. In other words, bring awareness into the senses. So let's try it right now. As we are listening to this teaching, likely the mind is being activated. We're thinking about the things. Let's make a shift now. Bringing awareness down from the mind into the senses, into the feeling of the flow of the breath. The vibrations in the air received by the ears. Sensations of the body. Maybe the body is feeling good, maybe it's feeling a little discomfort. Just being the noticing, bringing the awareness into the body. Bringing it down to the heels. Where are your feet? How are you connecting with the support of the earth below? The chair upon which you sit, if you are sitting on a chair. Or however your body is existing in space and with the earth in this moment. It's relaxing, but at the same time, stay alert, stay the presence as opposed to just going to sleep. It's a gift and a blessing to go to sleep. But there is a world here, a world of presence, a world of the senses. This is the practice of presence, ever available to us, a place to return, a palace of holiness, a palace of connection with that which we call the sacred, that which we call the divine, that we can enter in any moment. Amen.
Shalom. I hope you've enjoyed this Torah of Awakening. If you have, I'd be so grateful if you would give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, click the bell to get notified when we go live on YouTube, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. And if you'd like to go deeper, you can check out the Malchut guided meditation. I'll leave the link for that in the description box. And when you're ready to go even deeper, you can support by becoming a member at TorahofAwakening.com. We gather 5 days a week for meditation and learning. Until next time, all blessings.